Right, Mr. Mueller goes to Washington. So, the Mueller testimony just wrapped up. It was approximately 3 hours long. And, you know, yesterday I was concerned about, Mueller just has to speak in the most plain language possible. And that was my main concern going into this. And I think, for the most part, he did okay. Okay. Actually, a lot of the time, he wasn't talking. Okay. When the Republicans were up, they were mostly filibustering and asking questions out of the purview of Mr. Mueller's scope. So on the Republican end, Mueller really wasn't talking. On the Democrat side, there was also a lot of questions that he couldn't answer. He said, those are outside of my purview. I cannot answer that. But he did quick, piffy answers. Because this whole thing was like a lightning round. It was a 3-hour lightning round of just rapid fire questions. Every congressperson gets 5 minutes and 5 minutes only. And, it just had to be a 3-hour lightning round. So, but going back to what I said yesterday, like, he just has to be plain spoken so that literally every American who has ears can understand. And I think, for the most part, that's fair to say he did. But he didn't get to speak a lot of the time. A lot of the time it was just asking questions, and a lot of the time it was filibustering. So, but a lot of good framing on the part of the Democrats. They just framed really important angles, the obstruction angles. They framed, what else did they frame? They focused on the witness tampering, so the witness tampering with Paul Manafort and his associate Rick Gates. That was focused on, but definitely Don McGahn and Trump's plan to fire Mueller seemed to take the main focus. The Democrats, you can tell they strategized, like, listen, we're going to focus on a few things. This was one of the few things they focused on. They really went to task in honing in where Trump was witness tampering, where he had Don McGahn send out a false statement, just as all types of corruption and illegal activity, and they focused on that a lot. They really hit a home run there, in my opinion. So that was a decent framing. Just let me give you some other generalized notes. First of all, Mueller seemed meek, nervous, shaky, rattled, under the weather. He did, for the first half of the 3-hour event, if not the whole time, he just seemed out of it. He seemed, sorry, can you repeat the question? Stuttering a lot. And like I said, it was rapid fire. For a guy who has to really think about his answers, this was not a good format. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that there is so many questions, literally hundreds of questions being hurled at this guy, and this guy has to answer in a very particular way to everything and anything. So I can see how that would get him rattled. I don't want to say just because he's a 74-year-old man, like he wrote a 500-page report. Okay, the guy's competent. It just seemed like he seemed shaky and nervous and rattled, and the format would provoke that. I don't think that's unusual. It's a rapid fire situation, and you're just boom, 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 boom. So, but a lot of the time he did seem compliant. He said a lot of things like, quote, sounds generally accurate. He said that a bunch of times. He said, I don't want to speculate, a bunch of times. He said things like, quote, I'd refer you to the report for that. He probably said that the most. He also said, quote, I'd have to pass on that. So there was a lot of passing the buck. He really wasn't answering everything. And his excuse was, it's out of his range. It's out of the Mueller report. He did not want to speculate. He was clear on that. He called out people characterizing things in a different way that don't reflect the genuine nature of the report. So he called out a lot of congresspeople and said, I just have to pass on that. Some other highlights: Jim Jordan, Louis Gohmert, and Matt Gaetz were the clown show, the GOP clown show. focusing on Fusion GPS, focusing on the Clintons, focusing on the 14 angry Democrats. And I love how Mueller cleared up. He got to verbalize that he never hired one person. And he clarified this multiple times because this was an angle by a lot of the GOP congresspeople. Mueller clarified he did not even once, hire anybody based on their political affiliations. Now, that's all you hear from the Republicans because they're going to politicize everything because they have no substance. The Jim Jordans, the Matt Gaetz, and the Louis Gomers of the world have been on a tear, just saying, oh, Robert Mueller and his angry Democrats. All the tweets you saw from Donald Trump, 14 angry Democrats, 10 angry Democrats. It was a different number each week. It was ridiculous. He actually got to verbalize it multiple times, and I love that. Under oath, he did not hire anybody based on political affiliations whatsoever. Okay? So, what are you going to do now? Where are you going to obfuscate now? Where are you going to deflect to now? You can't. And that's awesome. Yeah, they just brought up the conspiracy angles, Steele dossier, and Mueller couldn't answer any of it because, one, it was insane, and two, it had nothing to do with what his job was there. Okay, he's not the only guy who works there. There's hundreds of people who work for the DOJ. Okay, that's affiliated and adjacent to his issues, and then the Republicans see Mueller saying things like, "I have to pass on that," as an implication of guilt. Like, oh, we know why you can't answer that, Mr. Mueller. Just, I mean, I'll give the Republicans one thing. They're great at being politically advantageous. They're great at smearing. They're pretty good at disingenuous framing. Wonderful at deflection. Wonderful at psychological projection and just misdirection. Like, Mueller couldn't answer half of the questions because at least half of the questions didn't even have to do with anything Robert Mueller was affiliated with. None of his work. It was all outside of his purview. He stated that multiple times. But once again, the Republicans will run with that. And they will say, look at Robert Mueller. He can't even answer our questions. I am outraged. When really he can, and he doesn't have to, because that doesn't have anything to do with the friggin' Mueller report, you dingus. Alright, anyway, those are my notes. I'm glad this is over. Like, share, and subscribe, click the bell.